down.
It's on? All right, good morning. My name is Gary Matsuoka, and we're here at Laguna Hills Nursery. It's a Saturday morning, and today we're having a open question and answer session. And for those of you at home, you can still, if you're watching, you can still, I think you can put questions on while you're watching. All right, first we'll do questions from the audience.
Okay, I'm holding leaves, so I guess I'll go. I brought a few samples. These are from my Persian cucumbers, and even though I've been doing a revolving door of spinosad and Earth's Ally, I'm still getting these like little brown sucking bugs, I think, but I can't identify them. Or maybe that's excrement. It's really hard to say. But they all keep getting this like, or maybe I should hand these to you. The new growth is fine, and then it eventually starts getting these spots. And I've also been seeing tiny, tiny little beetles with a black and white striking that I have a picture of if that helps.
Usually those would be your cucumber beetles or one of the, and spinosad will take care of those. Well, in this case, I've got to get some better eyes on. Let me grab my jeweler's loupe.
Oh, yeah.
It's nice to have at least a 10 power magnifying loupe or glass. This is actually a 20 power, 30 power.
Yeah.
So it helps to see things better.
I've been seeing the beetles, they look like this. I've been seeing them on the other plants as well, so I'm unsure if they're just slow growth. Is that what you think? Yeah?
Yeah, or it's a variegated ladybug.
No, they're way too small. They're like teeny tiny.
Ladybug.
I think I'll try to show the chat. Does anybody know what this is? Is anybody coming through?
Yeah, it's a little out of focus.
You're like that?
Yeah, more like a
Actually, that actually looks like a ladybug.
But they're so small.
Yeah, there's a lot of different kinds.
They get fat.
Well, the ladybugs I see are about like that big. These guys are like really big, like a millimeter.
Yeah.
Okay, this does have spider mites on it.
I've been killing them.
Yeah, the roots finish.
So this leaf has spider mites,
Oh, is that? Yeah.
and oil sprays are usually good for that. I mean, there aren't many, so you've been controlling them.
I also have like a 15.
So red spider mites, assorted other little tiny mites on here, but most of them are dead.
I have 5 like cucumber plants to one kind of big planter bag with a trellis. Do you think it's too crowded? That might be causing the pest issue to be worse.
No, they get crowded.
Okay.
Sometimes the luck of the draw. There are diseases that you can come across that just wipes out all the cucurbits in the yard. And we've seen that a couple times in the last 15 years where all the cucumber, squash, and pumpkin plants just wither and die away. It's a disease that is spread by insects that runs through areas of the U.S. every now and then. Not much you can do about that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I assume these are chili thrips. This is a milkweed leaf, and this is a pepper plant leaf from hatch chili.
Yeah, we're assuming that too. So when the leaves don't come out normal, they're all warped, especially side-to-side warping, like this is kind of a side-to-side warping. We associate that with thrip damage when the leaves are just forming a lot smaller and then they come out crazy looking. Usually for thrips, so thrips is kind of the worst thing we've got nowadays. You always spell with an S. And the nasty one that's really hit us is the chili thrip, which came in about 5 or 6 years ago. And it can just totally destroy new growth on, according to the literature, over 250 species of plants. So just about everything that's growing new leaves, when it's warm weather, And this year we warmed up really early. We saw some chili thrips as early as March this year, whereas most years we don't get that hot weather till August or at least late July. But this year we had it in March, so the chili thrips are making all the new growth on pomegranates, on chili. Quite a few plants this get shriveled looking. The best control for that is spinosad. However, spinosad only controls 95% or 94% of all the thrips, so they'll survive it. So you have to alternate it. You can use an oil. Now, this particular product here called Earth's Ally, which is an oil spray. And it's organic and it's non-toxic to people because it's thyme oil, rosemary oil, clove oil, and peppermint oil. So it's culinary type material. The claim on their website is also kills around 95% of all the thrips. We hope it's a different 95% than the spinosad does. And if you're battling the thrips and you got a real bad case of it, what we're told as the best way to do alternate spraying is to hit one product 2 weeks twice and then hit the other product twice to make sure you get all the bugs that this one can kill first and then all the bugs this one can kill. You have to follow the instructions on the label as to the intervals of spraying.
A Rose docent at the library said that chili thrips are the only thing that really causes an issue, and they just put spinosad on everything.
Yeah, spinosad on everything, and it controls most of the bugs we're worried about, but it won't control all of them, so we have to do alternating products eventually to be able to keep them from becoming immune to the sprays. And there are other products besides Earth's Ally, but Earth's Ally and spinosad are two organic products. So in a vegetable garden, it's nice to stay as organic as you can. Okay.
Okay, I just got like panicked and cut everything from my garden. I've been struggling with my strawberries, and I took your advice where I give them an inch of water every day, but I've still just been battling aphids. And I just wanted to ask if this kind of growth looks normal, if it looks kind of like icky, like it's been diminished by pests.
Well, one of the big problems we're having with strawberries these days is also thrip damage. And there are thrips on here.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Those are either thrips or psyllids. There's some bugs on here.
What are psyllids?
Psyllids are aphid-like creatures.
Oh.
But there are definitely, I think these are actually psyllids. You can take a look.
Really?
But there's some green, light green bugs that are kind of slightly long, oval shaped.
Yeah.
It could be baby psyllids, could be even baby aphids, could be baby thrips. It's hard to tell when they're real young what they are.
I've been doing the same thing, alternation between spinosad and the Earth's Ally spray, so hopefully that'll win out in the end. Does this growth look like, I mean, as far as the strawberry plant goes, does this growth look kind of like severely diminished, or is it kind of doing okay?
No, it's affected by something.
Yeah, it's all crunched up. Okay. My root beer hyssops have been, the bottom leaves keep getting like this. Is that a sign of like too much watering, or is it just a normal process of flowers to let their bottom leaves kind of wither and fall off?
Yeah, I mean, you look up any textbook on this symptom and they would just tell you general stress. It could be lack of water, could be bad roots, could be lack of fertilizer, or it could just be
stressed out.
or it could just be normal aging.
Okay.
If you have plenty of new growth coming, then I would just say normal aging.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I do. So that's cool. And then I had two last ones. don't worry about this. A stray cat took a bite out of it, so that's not. But my Black Mission fig has been getting this weird kind of like blotchy look to it.
Yeah, that's a virus.
Oh, it is? Oh.
So viruses, most figs have viruses. They show up when the figs aren't at full strength.
Yeah.
And as soon as it gets hot and stays hot, or the plant gets stronger because its roots are better, then the virus's symptoms just disappear.
Okay.
You-
Yeah, the leaves were curled up a bit, and I realized I wasn't watering it probably consistently enough.
But that's a typical virus pattern of modeling.
I've been I mulched it with orchid bark. Is that okay for?
Oh, that's fine.
Okay, but I'm trying to put rock so that the bark isn't right next to the trunk because I know that's not ideal. I don't
It's
know.
okay. It don't matter.
Oh,
Nature is not that clean.
Every time I tell Gary something I read on the internet, he just looks at me and shakes his head. Lastly, you once said to me once you kind of like miss watering your blueberry bush, it's kind of like it permanently affects it, or maybe I misunderstood. But my blueberry bush has been really stunted. I've been watering it regularly for weeks. I gave it some fertilizer for like new, vegetation growth, but its new growth is really pale and it's just not been growing too fast. And I'm just wondering if there's something I could do better.
Can't tell from this.
All right, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
All right, I think I.
All right, you were next.
On to the next.
Spring. What about, how do you avoid problems with your pollinators from the spring?
Oh, the question was how do you avoid problems with your pollinators when you're spraying? Generally, you spray late in the day. I mean, we find that the bees are out before 6, so it's like, okay, if you get up really early, if you want to get up before the bees are out, or if you go out after sunsets, usually there's not many bees out right when the sun sets. So that's the best time to do spraying. So most of these organic products will tell you if you hit the bee, you'll kill it. If you don't hit it, you're not going to, and it comes later, it's not going to be damaged by the products. But yeah, if you hit the bee, you can kill it with almost any spray we use. But generally these, the spinosad, the Earth's Ally, which is an oil spray, or the other oils generally don't have much residual effect on bees.
Yeah, orange trees that have new leaves that are deformed, is that the same thing with the drip problem?
This time of year, not usually. So the thrips on citrus usually affect them. The first leaves you see in the year, like around March, if they're warped side to side, that's thrips. On citrus, this time of year, starting in early June, we get the citrus leaf miner. But in spring, we do get, aphids and the thrips. Oops. So aphids usually cause the leaves to roll back on themselves or roll onto themselves from longitudinally. So the leaves actually roll that way. And then thrips usually cause a side-to-side warping of the leaf. But the citrus leaf miners, which are in operation right now on new growth, only on new growth, what they do is totally different. So they affect the leaves when they're maybe this size. The adult moth lays little eggs in there, and the larvae actually tunnel inside the leaf, causing patterns that look something like this. And as they're tunneling through the leaf just can't develop properly. It's all folded over and misshapen. And then they roll the edge of a leaf over to make a little cocoon to turn it back into an adult moth. So the citrus leaf miners are in operation from the first part of June all the way till the end of November or even into December.
So what should I use to treat it?
spinosad. So spinosad treats it. The problem we have with citrus leaves is they're really waxy. So this product, which is also spinosad, won't work as is because it won't stick to the leaf well enough. Yeah, Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew is spinosad also. This spinosad has soap in it. You might be able to add a few drops of soap to this to make it work. We have actually a wetting agent that we sell that'll make this stick better. And when we had citrus here 9 years ago, that's what we did. We used the Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew mixed with the wetting agent and applied it every 2 weeks on the citrus and didn't see any damage. If you go 2.5 weeks, all your new growth is totally messed up again. Although for most homeowners, if you just spray it once during the bad part of the year, which is June and July, you won't see much damage the rest of the year because you'll kind of cut it off at the first part. But at our store, we didn't want to see any damage, and to do that, you'd have to spray it every 2 weeks from June, or at least mid-June, all the way into the end of November. Yes.
Can you make your own insecticide from chrysanthemum flower?
Well, there's a special chrysanthemum that you can get called a pyrethrum that was one of the original botanical insecticides. It's been around a long time. It's been used for hundreds or thousands of years. And unfortunately, most bugs no longer seem to be affected by that particular one. Now, it's true that they may be affected by it. So what they've had to do, starting in the 60s or 70s, they found that the original pyrethrum insecticide wasn't killing bugs anymore. And they found out that on certain pests like whiteflies, that only took 3 generations to become immune, because you kill off 99% of the population, and the only ones that survived the pyrethrum were the ones that are immune to it. So within 3 or 4 years, they were totally immune to it. So what they've been doing in the meantime is developing new slightly modified versions of pyrethrums. They're called the synthetic pyrethroids. We write some of this terminology down. So pyrethrum we used a long time ago, back in the 60s and 70s, and that became less effective. So they started making synthetic pyrethroids, and I don't recall the name. Well, yeah, we had resmethrin, which was crazy effective. So anything that ends with the TRIN is a synthetic version of pyrethrum. And then we had permethrin. And there's a whole bunch of that are used indoors, like deltamethrin, tetramethrin. Those are Raid and Black Flag products, because they're very safe around people. They're real nasty on most bugs and fish, but they're real safe around people because they're a copy of a plant sap. And then one of the newest ones is cylohethrin. So they have to keep making new versions of the original pyrethrum that the bugs aren't immune to, slightly modify them. So that's your current heavily used insecticides.
So is the plant that we eat when we eat sukiyaki, and when I eat sukiyaki, I put chrysanthemum leaves in my food? Is that the same plant that has the perfume?
No, it looks totally different.
Oh, okay.
But a lot of plants have natural pesticide activity.
They're supposed to put chrysanthemum, yeah.
Yeah, there's
Yeah, I eat some.
I didn't know
eat
that.
chrysanthemum.
there's a special chrysanthemum in Japan that they use for eating.
When I go to Japan, I go to nurseries and buy all the seeds. I can't read, so I have somebody translate for me, but I know I'm getting the wrong chrysanthemum. I need to get the one that has chrysanthemum, so it helps you get it better.
Right.
Used in ochazuke as well? Ochazuke? Is that used in that as well?
Okay. I don't
Don't know.
You buy the seed?
All right. Any other questions on the floor here? Yes.
I just bought the 5-gallon goji berry,
Uh-huh.
and I plan to grow it in probably a 25-gallon
hmm
plastic pot. Could you instruct me how to actually, should I pot it now or should I wait and, have it careful?
Well, it's nice to get it into the container, a bigger container as soon as you can. The problem we have with small containers is they dry out too fast and they also overheat in the sun. So you want to get into a larger container to protect the root system better. And if you use our top potting soil now, for the viewers at home, we don't have the official bags back in stock yet. We're using a temporary bag right now. So I've been asked for the last few weeks, every day someone calls or emails me and says, I'm trying to get top pot. We can't seem to get it. Should be back available hopefully within 2 or 3 weeks. That's what we're thinking. 2 or 3 weeks will be, but we do have our substitute product here at the store right now. But yeah, use our top pot. That's a permanent potting soil. One of the few that are made in the US that are actually pretty permanent. Fertilize it. Now, if you have a goji berry plant, they tend to be like pomegranates and olive trees where they naturally send up when you plant them, sometimes 100 stems out of the dirt. Don't let them. We find that on most plants that have the ability to make a lot of stems from the ground. So like a typical olive, you plant it and you get all these branches coming out of the base of the plant. They don't produce well at all. You have to have thicker trunks to get good fruit. So you see the picture of goji berries being grown in the highland areas of China. They look like little trees. And the branches hang and they're covered with berries. Because the first time I grew a goji berry, I didn't know this stuff. I put it in a big pot, it looked like this. I kept in there for a couple years, never even bloomed. I said, well, this is stupid. What am I doing this for? So I kind of gave up on it. I said, this isn't producing here in my yard anyway. So I just threw it away. I said, they don't produce well. But then we found out, oh, you got to train them with a single trunk. The weeping branches, horizontal branches that weep, are the ones that start production. And they said it takes about 4 or 5 years to get to the max production on a goji berry. So had to learn how to do it properly. Same with pomegranates, same with olive trees. If you let them have too many branches from the base, it takes them a lot longer to start production.
Does it take just neutralize soil or does it like a little bit of acid?
Well, they're coming from a dry area of China, Tibet, that area, Mongolia. And they said it's slightly alkaline. So we should be fine. I mean, our top pot's slightly acidic. Our water is alkaline. The soil around here is alkaline. They should be fine. So we haven't seen a problem with that. You do have to have good air circulation around. They do pick up mildew if the weather's really nasty, especially if I had mine surrounded by other trees, it's picking up quite a bit of mildew. But if they're out in the open, they should be better.
Could that be trained to grow on a chain link fence? And if so, would you want to develop a single trunk first and then put it onto it?
Well, you may not need Well, yeah, it's probably safer if you're on a fence to go with a single trunk going up and then just have it travel outwards. Because we've seen them on farms, local farms, where they do train it onto a trellis. That's pretty much one plane, and then the branches kind of weep out from there. So that can work too. But yeah, not too, that's the main thing, not too many stems competing for, for energy storage and all that.
Alkaline soil.
Yeah, they like it slightly alkaline. But though I think the literature said it'll take somewhere between 6 and 8 and 9, something like that. So
Should I repot it right now after I?
you got it from us?
Yeah, it's right here.
Our 5 gallons are a little bit young. I'd probably leave them there for a few more weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, I put them out like a week before I wanted to, but I thought because our 1 gallons were ready, so I wanted to put them in the newsletter. 5 gallons can probably use one or 2 more weeks in the pot before they're transplantable. And the ones we have 5 gallon are the Crimson Star, which is nice. That's the commercial one in China. So we figured that one was chosen for most likely fruit size and mildew resistance, because those are the 2 main problems they have, is mildew on the leaves, and of course fruit size helps.
They're evergreen too.
Yes. Well, they're tender evergreen, so if it gets too cold, they might drop. Because when we used to get cold winters, they would drop their leaves.
But just for a few days.
Yeah, they grow back pretty fast. Okay. Yeah.
So Gary, I have 2 small avocado trees that I grew from lineage. They're about 2 feet tall, and the leaves have some reddish brown spots about 8 of an inch in diameter. What is the most likely disease or pest that's causing that? I should have taken a picture of it.
Yeah. So avocados, the most common cause of little spots are usually persea mites. And if you see an avocado leaf and you have the spots develop along the veins, that's definitely persea mites. Now, when persea mites are active, they actually have a silvery web over those spots. But if they're gone, because there are predator mites that eat them, then the spots turn brown.
These spots are kind of throughout the whole leaf. They're not necessarily only on the veins.
Don't know. You'd have to bring a sample of that one in.
I've sprayed it with the Captain Jack's dead bug, and then I've alternated with that mineral oil.
Okay. Well, that'll take care of any persea mite.
Yeah, that's taking care of it right now, but I'm worried if it comes back, what is it?
Yeah, we rarely have any nasty bug problems on avocados other than persea mite. Persea is a botanical name for avocados, so they call it a persea mite. Very common pest, came into California from Mexico about 25 years ago. And there is a predator mite that eats it. So we don't usually have to spray a homeowner tree, just keep an eye on it. Any other questions from the floor?
Oh, please go ahead. I monopolize this enough.
Gary, I was going to buy one of your pomegranate trees, the Ariana, and I noticed that the soil, it doesn't look like it's top pot. Is it a different soil? And should I replace it with your top pot?
It's fine. It's fine. So when we couldn't get top pot in April, we asked other soil suppliers in there to mix up something for us that would work. And that mix was, they called it, instead of peat moss, they put in something they called lignopeat. And we didn't know what that was. We thought, oh, the price is really good. Let's give this a try. So we brought it in. And lignopeat is actually redwood fibers. So it's redwood fibers. So we didn't know how that would affect the plant. So we planted some things in it we thought wouldn't be affected. And it's actually done, most of the plants we've grown in it have done quite well. So pomegranates, mulberries, quite a few. We didn't want to do avocados in it just in case, but because it's only 30% redwood fiber and not 90% like what some nurseries use, it doesn't seem to be affecting them too much. And they look pretty good. They actually look quite nice. So that's lignapete, which is terrible because it's false representation of what it is, which is redwood fibers.
And if I wanted to do a cutting from the tree at some point, how big of a branch tip would I need to use for cutting?
So when you take cuttings of pomegranates, all the literature will tell you first year growth. So you do this in winter. So you do what grew this year, that's at least pencil thick. So that's 3/8 inch diameter. I've done a little bit smaller than that, but usually if this branch is too small, it doesn't work. But if it's pencil thick or thicker on 1-year-old wood and about a 5 to 7 inch length, and then you stick it into our acid mix, usually it grows. That's how we propagate a lot of pomegranates, is by stem cuttings. Now you can also do it by greenwood cuttings, which takes a lot more effort. So if you just take fairly thick branches with leaves on them, cuttings about 3 to 4 inches, but then you have to put them in a humid location, like underneath plastic, because we've done that with pomegranates too. Is greenwood cuttings, or no, they're not actually greenwood, that they would be semi, what do you call that? Semi hardwood with leaves on them.
So the material that I use should be more on the harder side than the soft wood.
Right.
So you could use a terrarium for that?
Yeah. Yeah, we do a lot of cuttings. So our Aaron pomegranate, which is evergreen, we can't get. I mean, we've done the hardwood cuttings on that one too, and it tends to be easier, but I can get a lot more cuttings from the branch tips than I can from the woody stems. But we've done it both ways.
Can you do cuttings of avocado trees?
Well, you can do cuttings of any plant. Avocados are probably one of the more difficult ones. I've never tried it. I'm sure it's possible. You can always do an air layer cutting, which is a pain. But, it may be a real bad take. Like right now, we're taking cuttings of this cryptocegia out here, this purple honey vine, which is absolutely gorgeous. So we took about 200 cuttings of that last year, and out of those 200, 3 rooted, and so far 1 is growing. So that's really bad percentage. That's like the worst plant we do, but the only other way to do it is to grow seeds and then graft them, which is also, well, air layer. My daughter has done some air layers on that. And then I believe she also, well, we have a lot of seedlings, so she'll probably do some grafting. But the cuttings, not easy on that particular plant. I mean, it would be the best way to do it if they took, but they're not taking very well. Yes.
And you use top pot. And could you tell me the difference between acid mix?
Well, the acid mix we consider a sterile medium, so we usually use that for cutting seeds and air layer, things that require, antiseptic conditions. So peat moss, our acid mix is just peat moss and pumice, and peat moss out of the bogs are considered antiseptic, or no diseases really in them. And then the pumice mined out of the ground, there's no diseases in there either. So our acid mix is sterile. Our top pot has sand, which is not been sterilized, so it's not sterile. So we'd rather use the acid mix.
Acid mix for cuttings.
Mm-hmm.
Bogs by design don't have microbial life because it's anaerobic. And that's why plants like Venus flytraps need to get their nitrogen from eating flies because they can't get it from the soil. And that's also why those bodies in Ireland were preserved so perfectly, because like they would lynch people and would throw them in bogs.
See it all.
Okay, we got questions?
I have a question about the tiny moths that you see. Like how harmful are those, and how can you combat them?
Tiny moths?
These like tiny. I haven't ID'd them entomologically, but they're these like tiny little.
Yeah,
moths plants.
there's all kinds of tiny moths.
Okay.
It's hard.
I'll look into it and get back to you.
I mean, most of them, you know, the moth itself, we don't try to treat. Just if you spray spinosad, you'll control any of their larvae.
Because the larvae eat the vegetation.
Yeah, I don't know of any moths that are beneficial that don't eat plants. Although, you know, in nature there are a few carnivorous caterpillars,
Yeah.
but not around here. Not around here.
All right. What is the best way to plant a fruit tree in clay soil? Say, digging a hole and adding compost mixed with water. Now I have created a bowl of water and killed my tree.
So about the best way you can plant. So if you get a fruit tree from us, most of the fruit trees we sell, you know, 99% of them are in our top pot. And in clay soil, in theory, you can just make a hole big enough to get the tree in the ground and surround it with clay soil. It's fine. Unless you get something bigger than so if you get a 5-gallon container, which is usually only 10 inches of root ball, similar to this pot here, and you sink that into clay, enough air gets through our top pot from the surface to keep those roots alive. Now, you can always improve the air circulation a little better. You can mix our top pot, which is mostly pumice and perlite, with some sand in it also, and mix that around the soil for a few inches on the outsides of it to help it breathe better. Or you can just surround it with sand. So this zone here, if you put in pure sand, a lot of contractors do that. And if this soil here has got compost in it, because most nurseries grow their plants in some form of compost, then it becomes very important to have airflow to compensate for the loss of oxygen that the compost is causing to the roots, especially if the root system is deeper. If this is a 24-inch box and the compost and the roots are now almost 2 feet underground, they're just going to, you know, the compost is going to start rotting anaerobically, and you can lose all the roots below a foot, and the tree gets set back for half a year before it grows new roots near the surface. In that case, it's imperative that you surround it with sand, at least on the sides. You can do the bottom too, but the sides are the most important to get the air all the way down to the bottom of the root ball. And we've seen those specs a lot on the architectural landscape plans we see for hotels and malls, parks. They all know that they should be doing this with sand, not planter mix that's made out of compost. So unfortunately, our industry is still selling planter mix that's made out of compost, which makes everything worse. You put a quote fresh compost in the ground. It helps the soil breathe initially, but as it decomposes, it makes it go negative. I mean, you get some airflow through freshly composted wood products and bark products, but as they age, they turn into sludge, and then the airflow goes down to zero, and the use of oxygen by the compost still decomposing causes negative oxygen levels. So then you lose your roots. So we have to do something about that in our trade eventually. Someone's got to tell the manufacturers of these things you're not helping. Now, if you had pure sand soil, putting compost in the ground can add a little vital nutrition. But if you got soil that doesn't breathe well, then you lose all your oxygen, your roots die, no matter if it's nutritious or not. Yes.
You say it's worth the trouble to just clean the roots up, do the conical thing, planting, spreading the roots and all that.
Okay, you asked about if you can take the compost off the root ball.
Yeah, and then you can spread the roots out over time.
Yeah, that works, but that's a lot of details about that we won't go over today, because a lot of cautions involved in bare rooting plants and then spraying the roots out. You can do it in the ways we talk about doing that, but it would take about a half hour to explain all the little details.
Oh, okay.
If I had a calamansi in the ground for 3 years and dug it out, can I put another citrus tree in the place? And what does Gary recommend?
Okay, so if you're replacing a citrus with a citrus, and how long did they say it was there for?
It was there for 3 years.
Okay, that's probably too long already. So anytime you have a tree in the ground, it puts out roots probably at the rate of about a foot a year going outwards. And the roots don't go very deep. They only go about a foot deep, so a foot a year outwards. So if you remove this tree, this calamandan, or calamansi they called it, and put another citrus in there, and you don't remove the soil, now this soil all around this area is now full of dying roots, dying citrus roots. And you plant a new citrus in there, it's surrounded by dying citrus roots. It's not going to respond very well. Now, 3 years isn't a long time, but still, I would clean up that area. So UC Davis did a study on orchard trees, and they said, okay, if you remove a tree, well, this was done for an apple orchard. If you remove an apple tree because it was broken or died for some reason, and you replace it with another apple tree, you remove a half a cubic yard of soil, which was a whole 3 foot wide and 18 inches deep. And you replace it with dirt that doesn't have the dead roots of that same tree in it. So, in your yard, you might have a spot, say 10 foot away, that hasn't had citrus roots, and it just take that soil, replace it with the other soil, and then put the citrus tree in that, and it will do just fine. 3 foot wide is probably more you need to do. So they said when they replaced the 3 foot wide dirt, they got an apple tree that grew immediately to about 10 foot across. Well, in most backyard orchards, we don't need plants that are 10 foot across. Even 6 foot across is plenty big. And for that, you might only need a hole about 2 foot wide, which is about half the dirt that a 3 foot wide hole has. So that's called replant syndrome. Happens to any plant. So if you pull out a tomato plant and you want to plant in exactly the same spot, you got to do the same thing if you don't want bad results. Any plant at all, bedding flowers. That's why we don't put the same flowers in you just pulled out. A friend of mine who runs an organic farm, their rule that they use on farms is 10 crops until they get back to the original crop. So they don't plant anything related for 10 crops. Now, we leased land from them for 4 years. Did not see them put the same crop in the same plot of land anytime during those 4 years we were there. So they have either a 4-year rotation cycle or more than 4 years to get 10 crops through that soil before they replant the same thing. Yes.
How wide a circle would you need to soil replacement tomato plants?
Well, tomatoes do quite well. You know, they can even do well with, I would say, a foot of clean dirt. Depends how big you want your tomato plant to grow. Because, you know, in hothouses, they grow tomato plants in this thing called the Dutch bucket, which is, I think a Dutch bucket is less than 5 gallons of dirt. And they'll grow really long tomato plants in Dutch buckets. So they don't need a huge root amount of clean dirt to get going. But, you know, of course, if you only did that much dirt and there's dead roots right outside of that, the disease might transfer over. So bigger is better.
How do you address calcium when fertilizing, being that osmotic coat does not contain calcium?
Wasn't aware of that. Let me check the label. Yeah, that's right. It doesn't have calcium. So calcium is used a lot, especially for trees. Wood has got a lot of calcium in it. And then fruit production, finishing fruits requires calcium. So we do sell gardens gypsum. So gypsum is the best way to get calcium back in there. Bone meal has some calcium in it too. But gypsum is the safest way to apply it. Yes.
I found the formula was shared in it was a chemist that his whole idea was that you can't put eggshells in your garden because the eggshells are made out of bicarbonate. So you need to take the eggshells, heat them to get the albumin off of the eggshell, and then soak them in vinegar. And in 3 or 4 days, you have calcium acetate. And I tried it and it works because I put my finger in and no more vinegar hits. But it releases pure calcium into the soil.
Okay.
So you
It
have to dilute it.
seems to be a lot of work.
I just pour the vinegar in the eggshell.
Okay.
Let it sit for a couple of days. But I mean, I don't have to go to Home Depot and buy stuff.
I use mushroom compost with my clay soil and don't really have any issues with my vegetables and find it helps. Is that bad? I also use mushroom compost as a mulch, and that looks to also help with weed suppression and water retention.
Well, mushroom compost, I believe, is manure plus wood product before the mushrooms grow in it. I'm not positive, though. I don't study mushroom compost. As a amendment, I don't like it, although it's well decomposed, so it's probably not going to cause too much trouble. I'd rather use it just as a surface mulch. Organic matter as a surface mulch, you still get all the benefits without any of the drawbacks. So that's what I would recommend, just use it as a surface mulch. A lot of vegetables can put up with that oxygen in the ground because they were chosen to survive in it. But I'm sure they do better without amendments, organic amendments underground.
Jerry, does gypsum supplement help prevent fruit drop?
No, I don't think it works fast enough to do anything. They say it takes plants quite a while to get accumulation of calcium in them. I don't know, we have a thing called what is it called? Blossom set or fruit set, and it is calcium. So it might do something. I don't know. I haven't studied that much.
Any thoughts on predatory mites and organic pest control?
Well, predatory mites, kind of a pain to use. They come in the mail and you got to put them right out. And they're for a certain purpose. I mean, they're used a lot in agriculture because you know, if they blow in the wind, because they usually blow around the farm in the wind, and if it's a certain mite you need for your farm, you just set it out there and it blows around in the wind and it gets distributed well. I've never used predatory mites. I'm sure they can work, but with what kind of speed does it work?
Any suggestions for treating aloe mites or aloe cancer?
I don't know what that is.
Is it advisable to cut down the tree almost completely at 10 years of age, or when it is already very sick and weak? I'm not sure their context with that.
I'm not sure what they're talking about.
Yeah.
Let's
Okay, I'm from the high desert, Apple Valley. Is it possible to grow an apple tree up here in my backyard in a really big container?
It is two things in containers. It gets too hot in the summer for apples, so you'll have to shade it. It's almost like it's better to.
Avocado tree in Apple Valley.
Oh, avocado tree in Apple Valley. Oh, well, it's too cold in the winter and it's too hot in the summer. Although it's not it's not as hot as the lower deserts, so. It would be difficult. I mean, it can be done. You'd probably have to build a screened or at least covered area with a real fine mesh to get the sunlight down a little bit, hold the temperatures down a little bit, increase the humidity a little bit. It can be done, but it's not natural.
Okay, here's another. Could it be done?
Yeah.
Would it be a bad idea to grow a couple of avocado trees inside a heated greenhouse in Portland, Oregon? I'm interested in growing a couple of Mexican varieties. Would I have to hand pollinate to get fruit, or would fans wind pollinate? If it's not too crazy, I'd take any advice.
Well, it's certainly possible. You wouldn't have to do it except in the winter, so you can open up all the doors. The problem with a lot of the Mexican varieties is they might be blooming when it's still raining heavily, so you don't get the bees. I mean, if you have a beehive in your greenhouse, then you're all set, because they would be forced to use the flowers on the avocados. But yeah, it's much better to have the bees do it. Wind pollination is not that great on avocados. The bees are much more effective. You can do it by hand, which is real painful. But yeah, it wouldn't take much protection in Portland to get it through the winter. You're just trying to keep them above 25 degrees. So if the greenhouse, you know, it can be down in the 40s and they'd still be okay.
What causes small fruit to fall off the tree? I think I fertilized in the spring. Could that be why?
If we're talking avocados,
They didn't specify fruit tree. They said a small fruit tree to have the fruit fall off.
If it's a big and then it's a big fly.
well, if it's avocados, so we'll go over the different kinds of fruit. Avocados, we like to starve them when the fruit's forming. So avocados usually bloom and set fruit between January and May. That's their main bloom period. And during that time, we don't want to feed them at all. According to the avocado research, if you fertilize at that time, the tree wants to grow leaves, and sometimes it aborts fruit to do that. It takes energy away from making flowers into fruit and puts them in the leaves instead. So remember, fertilizer is not an energy source for plants. It actually is a energy output because it makes them grow, and growing takes energy to do. Just sitting there and collecting energy from the sun is the way plants get stronger. So on avocados, they don't recommend fertilizing after November or before June, because you want all the energy to be going into flower and fruit production at that time. Fertilize after the fruit's already good size, and then right before you want the tree to make more flowers, that's when you fertilize. That's,
Is that only for trees? Does that not pertain to other plants like tomatoes?
don't know. I haven't seen research on that. I mean, tomatoes grow constantly, so I don't know that it matters that much. I mean, avocados definitely are noted for having poor fruit set. The average being 1 out of every 10,000 flowers makes it to a ripe fruit. Whereas tomatoes, almost every flower can make a fruit during certain temperature ranges, more during the temperature range. With other fruit trees, we haven't heard anything about setting fruit versus fertilizing at the same time. Like citrus, they say fertilize January through July, and that's their entire bloom period. They say keep it well fertilized January through July, or through June at least, to get more growth and more flowers, but they're blooming at the same time. So apparently citrus is more like 1 out of every 10 flowers makes a fruit on seedy citrus, and 1 out of every 50 flowers makes a fruit on seedless citrus. So a lot better than avocados, which is 1 out of 10,000.
Is there any spray to help fight off codling moth? Even with the traps, I have them every year with Granny Smith and Poochie.
Okay, so with apples, the most important thing we've seen is that when they bloom, they usually make about anywhere from 1 to 7 fruit on each cluster. We find that anytime one apple touches another, they get a worm in both fruits. So the most important thing to do is to thin them out so there's only one fruit hanging and then another fruit a distance away, because they said the codling moth has to hide its eggs, and they usually hide their eggs where either the fruit touches another fruit or where a fruit touches a branch or a leaf, so you see the little fruits forming when they're, no bigger than a golf ball. Make sure they're hanging singly and not stuck against the trunk or a leaf or something where the codling moth can hide its eggs. And when you do that, you rarely see a codling moth damage to the fruit. Because I used to do that, I had about 12 varieties of apples. The only apples that would still get codling moth damage when I did that was Jonagold occasionally and Mutsu, but all the other apples, when I made it sure that they were hanging cleanly, didn't get any codling moth damage. Now, if you have a lot of codling moth and they lay a whole bunch of eggs, you may still have that problem. So you can, the spinosad can be used every few weeks from the time it's golf ball size to full size, and that will kill any hatching eggs that are on the fruit. The other option is to surround each fruit with a bag of some sort. So back in the 80s, they told us you get a number 2 paper bag from Smart and Final. Get a knife and punch a hole in the bottom. Slip the bag over the fruit when it's about golf ball size and roll up the other end and check on it now and then. Sunset Magazine, about 20 years later, came out with articles saying that Ziploc bags work just fine. Put a little hole at the bottom of the bag to let any moisture out. And they colored up better in a Ziploc bag than they did in a paper bag. So those are methods you can just exclude any bug or thing out of the apples to do that.
Is the paper bag not recommended because those materials can sometimes give off ethylene gas?
No, that's what they did. They said they did that on organic orchards for like 20 years. So.
If I can't get pumice, can I use the fine gravel used in aquarium stores? And can I use cocoa instead of peat moss?
Well, gravel doesn't work like pumice does. Perlite works like pumice does. And there's different grades of perlite. So pumice and perlite are both airy rock. Gravel at the bottom of a fish tank might be okay. I don't know. I don't work with fish, so I don't know the weight of it. If it's, because we're using pumice primarily to get more air through the soil and to make it weigh less than sand actually would weigh. Perlite, there's different types of perlite. Some of the coarser perlites are almost as heavy as pumice weight-wise, so they don't float as easy as some of the lighter perlites. And then peat moss and core are totally different things, and I don't like the core. So peat moss and core, neither one of them break down real fast, so they can you avoid the sludginess that you get out of wood and bark. But core is so fresh. So peat moss is dead reeds. Usually it's dead reeds that have been sitting at the bottom of the lake for 10 years or more before they come out. So it's very neutral. It holds water well. Doesn't provide airflow. That's not what it's used for. It's to wick water through our rocky dirt that we make, and it's to hold the water. Core can do a lot of that, but it's too fresh. So when you use core, it still has tannins in it. So most plant material at once, when it's alive, it contains tannins, which are chemicals that help keep fungus and bugs from consuming the wood products. And any freshly killed plant is full of tannins, which discolors the water and often discolors the plants growing in it. So whenever we use core to grow plants and the leaves come out with an orange tinge, which we think is doing something bad, whereas peat moss, no tannins, no discoloration of the water or the plants. So we like peat better just because of that. Now I'm sure if you have aged core, it can maybe do the same thing, but so far I don't know.
Could you bleach the tannins out before you use it?
Yeah, I would suppose you could, but I don't know what the process would be.
Yeah.
If it's just time and soaking water for a month, or is it soaking water for years? I don't know. Yes.
Jerry, what is your favorite dragon fruit variety?
I don't know. They're all too sweet nowadays. I would still have to say, of the ones I've grown myself, Physical Graffiti, but they have a lot more sweeter varieties now. But I don't know that's more sweet, more sugar is what we need in our lives.
What do you like?
Physical Graffiti. Physical Graffiti. And I don't know how to spell graffiti. Every time I spell it differently. 2 T's,
There's 2
3 T's.
Do fruits require direct contact by sunshine to properly ripen?
The fruit itself, no, although on apples they know you get better color, but color may not be associated with taste. I mean, it is in our brains. Like the interesting thing we read was that people buy apples that are redder. Back in the 80s, the Washington Apple Association wanted to find out how to help people choose the best tasting red delicious apple, because in those days the red delicious apples were getting kind of bland. So they did a study on which red delicious apples tasted the best, and they found out it was the greenest ones tasted better than the red ones. So decide, well, we're not going to publish that because we're promoting red delicious apples, not green red delicious apples. But that was the result of the study. Just like they say Fuji apples, there's red Fuji apples and the original Fuji apples. The original Fuji apples are greener and have better flavor, but the red Fuji apples look more visually appealing. So the colors may not match what the fruit tastes like. It's mainly the leaves that give you the energy to make the taste. And the more sun you have so with the one study they did on watermelons, they said the weather the last 4 days before they harvested totally determined how sweet they were. So the last 4 days before picking, more sunlight helps. Now on fruit that hangs a long time, like apples, I don't know that it matters that much. They can hang for months and months and months past ripe. They probably pick up their taste way before they're picked. So
Will pruning off the non-fruiting parts of trees be detrimental to existing fruit on the rest of the tree?
It probably wouldn't help much. So fruit is affected. I think they get their sugar and energy from within a foot of the fruit itself. Like they said, grapes. So grapes, when they're growing, they have clusters of fruit attached to the leaves.
Is anybody available to help a customer right now? She's at the front.
Put me in, coach.
And they wanted to know how much of the vine they had to keep, because you can have the fruit, say, hanging here, and the vine can be growing like 20 foot further out beyond the fruit, and which is a mess in the vineyard. So they want to know how much of this vine they can cut and still get good quality fruit and not kill the vine. And they found out it was 2 foot beyond the cluster. So the branch would still have enough energy to grow new branches next year and enough energy to make the fruit. And on a lot of trees, it's just a matter of a foot or so beyond around the fruit itself. That now on Fuji apples, they did a study and they said 1 fruit for every 27 leaves on the tree was the right number. That's when you get maximum sweetness on the Fuji apple, 1 fruit for every 27. So that's going to be probably a little more than a foot in all directions on the Fuji apple, because there's like 3 or 4 leaves on the spur that holds the apple, and it might need a little more room than that, yeah.
Any recommendations for a struggling gardenia plant, such as just basic care?
Well, gardenias are one of the easiest plants to grow, but they don't like the compost soils that other nurseries use, and it's really hard to repair them. So you just have to buy one from us that's in our top potting soil to begin with, and then treat it properly from that point on. We find, growing gardenias incredibly easy in good soil, but everybody else uses compost, and that eventually makes them turn yellow, and it's real hard. You can try removing the dirt and saving it, but you fail at that more times. They don't like the roots full with. So it's better you might even just take a cutting of your gardenia, put it in our acid mix potting soil, start the cutting, and go from there, because they're real easy from cuttings. We couldn't believe how easy they are to grow.
I have a cherry tree I got from you a couple of years ago, and every year I deal with something that looks like this. It looks like tiny black slugs all over the leaves, and the leaves are nearly all chewed up. It flowered last year, but not this year in Santa Barbara.
So there is a pest called I think it's a cherry slug. No, it's called a pear slug, but it affects stone fruits, like especially cherries. So it's a larva of a stingless wasp that looks like a slug. It's kind of slimy looking. It does have a few legs that are real tiny on it, and it laces out the leaves. So the leaves have all these holes. There's only 1 generation a year. Usually you don't notice the damage till they're already done and gone. But if you do notice it, the spinosad will control those. But, whenever I saw it on my plum trees, I looked for the bug and it was already gone. They said 1 generation a year, you usually don't catch it. And spinosad, so if you sprayed spinosad right after they started leafing out, you'd probably catch the first generation of them, first and only generation of those. Now, locally, no one got cherries this year, or hardly any stone fruit at all this year, because the winter was so weird. So we just have to hope for a better winter, more normal winter conditions next year.
looking for advice on a plant that will work on a hill that is steep and difficult to maintain. I've managed a few fruit trees there, but I would like a low ground cover that requires minimum maintenance and ideally no watering. The hillside gets full sun all day with a few shaded spots.
Okay, so you're looking for a ground cover that can survive on our natural water, not no water at all. So there's quite a few plants. There are the native ceanothus. Now, this plant is also one like gardenias. If it's in a compost soil, like most growers grow them in, you really have trouble. Now, ceanothus, fortunately, you can bare root them, cut them back when you bare root them, and put them in the native soil as is, and they usually make it, and then they grow like weeds. But of course, you want a low ceanothus. Some ceanothus will grow 10 foot high, some 5 foot high, a lot of them 1 to 2 feet. We are growing a ceanothus called Hirstiorum, which is the one they found at Hearst Castle, which is a nice low one. We should have them hopefully next week or 2 weeks from now in 1 gallon, but that's one of the lowest ceanothus we've seen. Usually we sell the Yankee Points, which I have in stock now, but they can make it 3 to 5 foot high. They're not as low. So this one's low, and that could work. The prostrate rosemaries can also live on our natural rainfall. Now, anytime you start these, you got to water them like crazy, at least every couple days or even every day if it's warm to get them started. Once they're rooted, which takes a few months, you can back off on the water a lot. And then rosemary and ceanothus should survive on native rainfall. If we get, say, at least 8 inches, 8 or 10 inches, if we don't get normal rain, our normal rainfall here is 13 to 14 inches. If we don't get that, you'll have to water them probably once a month in the summer to keep them going. But the low rosemaries, some are lower than others. There is the native plant called Baccharis, or Baccharis. And that one, the short one, I think it's Pigeon Point, will grow about so high. And then there's something from Australia that I have a few plants of called, I'm not going to spell this proper, Ragudia, which won a award at a plant show up in Santa Barbara, I think, as one of the outstanding ground cover plants. It's not real pretty. It's kind of a gray leaf thing that just covers the ground really quickly. But that's supposed to need very little water. Also, it gets by with very low water. There's taller, there's some other native plants. I haven't grown epilobium enough to tell you if it's supposed to work, but I haven't grown enough. It may not. It does have, well, they say it looks better if you water a little bit in the summertime. There's Galvesia, but that's a 2 footer. It might be too high. It's another native plant.
Do you like Diamondia?
Not anymore. So Diamondia, 20 years ago, Diamondia was our go-to low ground cover. It was called silver carpeting because you plant Diamondia, it looks like your ground's covered with silver carpeting. So real low, real nice. I saw some really great stuff back in the 90s and early 2000s. And then about 10 years ago, a lot of it started rotting away. We think a disease came in. Back in the 80s, was this red apple ground cover, which is a type of ice plant. And that started rotting in the 90s. So we went to Diamondia, and that started rotting in the 2000, say 12 or so. So now there's a plant called Ruchia. That's another really low ice plant that is walkable, but it's a little bit high. I'm a little bit low. It may not stop all the weeds on the hillside. In fact, there's Carapia. So Carapia could work too. This looks kind of like clover. It's supposed to be native to California, up north where it rains more. Grows like a weed, stays within 8 inches of the ground, does attract a lot of bees to it because it blooms clover-like pink flowers. That one could work if you don't mind the bees, because that's supposedly a native from around the Bay Area.
Do you know what the type of ice plant is? They planted it a lot in the 90s, and it was like palish green and had a lot of pink flowers.
You mean like
Irvine, kind of?
You mean like Rosea ice plant, which is a real tiny leaf ice plant?
Maybe.
Rosea has leaflets that are like less than half an inch long.
Okay, yeah, I think that was it. Growing up in my neighborhood, they put it everywhere, and there were these really narrow paths in between the streets. But to use them, you would have to get through like clouds of bees.
Yeah.
Because there's so many bees.
Yeah.
I'm just like curious to know what plant they use.
Yes.
They find with ice plant that it was so shallow rooted that at times of rain, the whole plant, everything would slide on the slope. And
Well-
better plants for weeding as far as
Well, okay, so the problem with ice plant, the one they use in the freeway got bad press. That's, I don't know, that one, the common name is Hottentot fig, but that one is the ice plant with the real big leaves. It gets really, really heavy, and it doesn't have great roots. So along the coast, they said it was sliding, the hills were just sliding covered with it. So just to know, ground covers in general don't hold slopes as well as trees do. So they said when trees are on a slope, that slope doesn't usually slide, but when there's ground cover on it, it slides easier. Although I'm sure there's some ground covers, some of these will have really good roots, but you know, ground covers usually don't live that long. That's the other problem with them. In my neighborhood, they did rosemary for 10 years. They had all died out after 10 years. They did my porm for 10 years, then it all died out. So a lot of these plants don't live that long. The trees live a lot longer, so they have more permanent roots, which hold the hill better.
My mom recently moved to Mission Viejo, and in her backyard there's this slope, and the previous owners put this like black material covering over it, and then wood chips on top. But there's plants, there's like certain trees or plants coming out from under there. Would that diminish the root's ability to get oxygen?
A little bit. Usually it's not a solid piece, it's woven, so the air can get in there.
I don't know. I was advising her to maybe get rid of it if she wanted.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't like it.
Yeah.
It doesn't do anything. It can. So when you have a ground cover cloth, the only thing it really helps with is it keeps the mulch on the surface from mixing with the dirt. It doesn't really help stop the weeds at all. It can keep plants from underneath from going through it, but it really can't stop any weeds from landing on top and growing on top of it. So.
Gary, I bought a couple of gardenia plants from you 3 years ago. I planted it in the ground with acid mix.
Mhm.
It's in full sun all day. The leaves are small. They're green, but they're very small. Is it getting too much sun?
Well, we noticed that in sunlight, the leaves are smaller, lighter green, and they bloom better. And if you grow the same plant in the shade, the leaves are bigger, dark green, but they don't bloom as much. So, so it depends what you want. Now, you can try fertilizing a lot. So in the old days, we were always told to fertilize gardenias every couple of weeks because they were heavy feeders. But in my own house, my first house I owned, I noticed we had gardenias on the north side and on the southeast side, and the ones on the southeast side bloomed a heck of a lot more than the ones on the north side, but they didn't look as good.
Yeah, that's the same thing I have.
Yeah.
What is the smallest avocado tree we carry?
You mean the smallest supposedly growing? Well, it depends what you do with them. So the industry promotes, or at least you see, University of California says that Holiday is the only avocado that won't grow big. All the other avocado trees, if you let them grow big, they can grow big. That means 20 foot or more. The only one that doesn't grow tall is Holiday, but they do warn it's not a small tree. So Holiday, when we've grown it several times now, it's a vine, but it's a huge vine. So if you don't put a stake on it, it just lays on the ground and grows like 30, 40 foot across. So it's not a small tree, but it doesn't grow upwards because it doesn't have any trunk strength. So it is, quote, the shortest avocado, but not necessarily small. Now, among the trees, if you just let them do their thing, so that's Holiday. Holiday, and I don't have any this year. It's vine-like. So it's not a small vine, but it doesn't have any height at all. Now, if you let Gwen do its thing, it's small. So Gwen, which is the granddaughter of Hass, is the heaviest fruiting avocado known. And if you let it fruit, it usually breaks all its branches off within a few years. So we've seen pictures from the University of California of Gwen trees this tall and this wide with 140 fruit on them. It's such a heavy fruiter that it can't grow upwards. But they did tell us they took 5 Gwen trees in their experimental orchard, cut off all the fruit for 5 years, and those 5 trees broke 20 foot. So it wants to grow. It has the potential to grow big, but the fruiting on it keeps it small and busted up. It just busts up from the weight of the fruit. So Gwen stays small unless you take the fruit off. And Gwen has a lot of offspring that are nearly similar. Gem, Surprise, Lamb, all real heavy producers. And because of production, it helps keep the plants on the small side. Now, what we do here is we test all the new avocados we get. Like some that are called tall, like Jan Boyce, it made fruit at 5 foot in height. So we figure with Jan Boyce, you can keep it cut at 5, well, I would say 8 foot, keep it cut at 8 foot, and it still produces. You don't have to let it get big because it still produces at 5 foot. Whereas some avocados, like when we've grown Queen, no fruit at 10 feet. You have to let it get bigger to get that thing to start production. A ball, when fruit at 6 feet, it's got to get bigger to start production. But there's a lot of avocados that'll fruit at this size, and if they fruit when they're that size and that age, that second year of life, then you can certainly prune them every winter to hold this. The tops of the avocado trees don't usually make the flowers and fruit, so you just cut the top off, let the side branches and bottom branches flower and fruit for you. And I would say most avocados we can do that with. I would say Queen, probably not a good one to keep small. And some of it's, maybe Nimlio, Nabal, Fuerte, regular Hass doesn't produce when they're real small. So you may have to let them grow bigger to fruit. But a lot of the avocado trees will fruit when they're small.
My satsuma and other citrus trees have developed scars on the young fruit. I'm not sure what it is and how to treat it. I do live in Texas on the coast where it's hot and humid.
No
And
pictures,
recently sprayed with sulfur.
but no photos.
No.
Boy, I'm not familiar with growing citrus in Texas at all.
There might be photos on our email so we can.
Yeah.
We'll get back to you, sir, if you're listening.
Because most of the damage on citrus sometimes caused by snails getting up in the trees. I don't know if they have snails in Texas or not. I don't know. I'd have to see the fruit.
Back to cucumbers. They've been producing for 4 weeks and got about 15 cubes from 5 plants. They're still producing a little bit, but the leaves are getting yellow. And you don't want them to stop producing. Is there anything that can be done?
Ooh, I'd have to see what's going on there. I mean, cucumbers are really bad if you don't, they die prematurely if you've had any squash related plant in that area in the last 3 years. They're really bad about not rotating crops. So if you've had cucumbers there in the past or anything related to it in the past 3 years, then you're in trouble. They'll just die prematurely. Other than that, I don't know, squash plants, the leaves don't live that long. So the yellowing at the base may be just normal.
How long do cucumber plants keep producing into the summer?
Don't know. I don't know. I would think as long as it stays warm, they can keep going.
Okay.
But I don't know. I haven't grown them that long, that many years.
Well, mine has taken a turn for the worse before they
Mhm.
Here are full of Japanese cucumbers, and when they start to grow, they get really curled. How can you prevent?
Mine has that too. They're getting like huge and curled.
Yeah. How can you get it to grow straighter?
Well, they say if they're hanging off the ground, they usually grow straight. If they're on the ground, they usually curl.
Ground it's straighter.
No, ground they curl. If they're hanging, they're straight.
So I have them hanging. So now, like a tomato case.
I don't know.
I've heard watering sometimes.
Could be the cucumber, the style we're going to show you, they're going to curl. If you're going straight, they're going to go straight.
A few months ago, I acquired a young red Japanese maple in a 15-gallon plastic container. A few weeks ago, I was away, and during a heat wave, the leaves got scorched and it dried out. There is still some green visible in the branches, and I soaked the tree for 24 hours. I planted it in a ceramic container with sand, potting soil, and top pot last week. It's in a shaded area. Anything else I should be doing?
Well, if the leaves are pretty much scorched, it's almost better to bare root it at that point. Take all the original dirt off. If it wasn't one that we grew, I don't think I grew any 15-gallon maples in the last year. I think I have one that we grew. I think it's still there. But if it's in a 15-gallon, it's probably in really bad dirt. And so the soil the growers use causes the leaves to scorch. And it's not from the sun. It's just a problem in that the roots are so sick when they're in bark that they can't get enough water out to keep the leaves alive or to keep the leaves healthy. So the leaves just give up and brown from all the edges. And so when we used to buy in maples from other growers, that was typical for what happened every summer. The leaves would just scorch, and they blamed the growers would blame either too much sun, which is crazy because where they grow maples commercially, they grow them in full sun. Up in Oregon, we used to buy in field-grown maples from a nursery south of Portland, Oregon, and they said we grow all our maples in full sun, and its average temperature in the summer is 90 degrees on the farm, and there's no problems. There's no issues with scorching because that's not what caused the leaves to brown out. So on maple leaf, if it was a sunburn, what you would see is a scorched area between the veins. Say if these were the veins. But if you get the tips going, that's a root problem. That means the roots aren't. Now, some people blame salt in the water. Salty water, I don't know. You take years of drought to create too much salt for the maple tree. And if you're in a container, there's no salt built in a container if the drain holes are at the bottom of the pot. So this stuff is usually due to health of roots. And you just have to get them out of the bark. Most growers of maple trees grow them in like 100% fir bark ground up. And they don't like that, so they just scorch every summer, and they'll do it for the next 10 years unless you get that bark off them. And if the leaf system is pretty much gone, then it's safe to bare root them. Take all the soil off, take all the bark off the roots, get them into our top pot or into just the native soil on the ground. And then when they recover, they don't, it takes them a year and a half to recover from root work. And then they don't seem to have any trouble with the sun at all. So, but they shouldn't have trouble with sun. The only Japanese maples that might scorch in full sun if they're healthy are the variegated ones with the white, pink, and green leaves. But the heat generally doesn't bother them scorch-wise. Okay, any other? That's.
I want to translate my begonias into, I don't know, whether top pot or asphalt, whichever that's better. Can you recommend?
We made our top pot for gardenia. And did you get the gardenia from us?
No, it was the gift from my grandfather.
Yeah, well,
I translate that into
it probably will die.
assuming it's budding a lot and healthy right now.
Well, okay, so look at the soil. If it's, some growers put them in pure peat, and that's fine. If it's in pure peat moss, which is just this brown stuff, you don't see any wood shavings or anything. You see wood?
Some wood pieces there.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to translate into,
Well, you can try washing that off because it's eventually going to kill them with a hose. You know, put your finger in a hose and see if you can do it that way, and then put it right into our top pot. Put it into part day sun for 2 weeks. And it takes a year before you know if it's going to make it or not. Because we made top pot for top pot was made specifically for gardenia, for permanent soil on gardenias. That's what we created top pot for. We knew if we can keep a gardenia alive, and so our test was in a 3-gallon container. We put a little gardenia cutting in there, and for 3 years it was not a single yellow leaf. It was this big and this wide. After 3 years on our patio, we go, okay, this thing loves it in this little tiny pot full of our top pot. We fertilize it, every few months or so, and it did wonderful in there. So, and after 3 years, it still looked absolutely gorgeous, and we sold it.
what kind of fertilizer that we should use for that?
Well, you can use the Osmocote. Initially back in the 1960s and 70s and 80s, we're told blood meal is perfect, which is dried cow blood. But a lot of things work. They're not that picky. It's just the soil. They need good dirt, proper soil to grow in.
And how about blueberry?
They do too.
And blueberry as well. So should we be in top pot or should we be in acid?
Well, acid mix, the advantage of acid mix, it holds more water than top pot does by a little bit. And blueberry is real sensitive to drought, so we usually put them in the acid mix. Plus, they like it really acidic. Now, our acid mix is acidic, but it's not extremely acidic. Our top pot's acidic too. We've grown blueberries in our top pot, and they do fine. But the acid mix is slightly more acidic and it holds slightly more water, so it is better to put the blueberries in that, although they'll live in either one. Again, if you buy a blueberry that's any bigger than a gallon container, it's nice to take off some of the soil. Even if you buy it in a gallon container, it's nice to take off some of that dirt because they're in bark. Again, most growers use bark, and that can cause them to turn yellow, although it doesn't usually kill them. I've seen them die. We used to carry 2-gallon blueberries in bark, and they would just turn yellow on us and fizzle out.
So at this time when I transplant, in addition to using your acid mix, do I fertilize it with anything else at this time of transplanting?
Yeah, usually when you transplant anything, you need to fertilize because it's more soil, so you need to add fertilizer.
So fertilizer every other
Depends what you use. If you use Osmocote, you do it every 6 months. If you use a lot of organics, it's every month. Just depends what you're using.
So no compost, no nothing on top.
You can put compost on top. Compost is somewhat a fertilizer too. So.
Yes, when you do cutting, do you recommend using rooting hormone?
Well, certain cuttings, so for when we do cuttings of certain plants, we use rooting hormone.
Like what?
Like when we're doing gardenia cuttings, when we're doing some of the more difficult ones like the Cryptostegia, the purple alamanda vine, the Michelias, which are magnolia types, we use hormones. The ones we don't bother, grape cuttings, they always take. Fig cuttings, didn't see any advantage to doing rooting hormone on those. Mulberry cuttings, didn't see any advantage to rooting hormone on those, although for some of the more difficult to root mulberries, it may help. Like Pakistan mulberry is real easy. World's Best is real easy. Maui is real easy. White mulberries are real easy. Black mulberries tend to be more difficult. White Pakistan tends to be more difficult, so we use hormones on those. And the top rated one is that gel, but I don't have that in stock today. Powders are, the liquids are highly rated, the gels are highly rated, the powders are okay, they're not as good. Just because gels and liquids stick better to the cutting.
I have some questions written down from the chat if anybody else has any. So someone asked, let me put the mic in the actually. Okay. Someone asked, do you have any advice for growing rhubarb, such as shade level, watering, wilting, and sprays?
Well, rhubarb is another one of those plants like gardenias. If the soil's wrong, they just rot away and die. So if you get a rhubarb plant, we haven't grown any for a few years. So if you get a rhubarb plant, carefully wash off the dirt, then put them in if they have leaves, put them in a half day of sun for a couple of weeks and get them into either natural soil in the ground or our top pot or our acid mix, and then you can water as much as you want. They can handle the sun better. We've had rhubarb in 15-gallon buckets in full sun in a bucket of sand, and they just did wonderful. So the heat doesn't bother them as much if they have healthy roots. Generally, though, a lot of people will tell you that morning to afternoon shade is probably a little better for them. They stay a little more lush looking. So morning sun, afternoon shade, but still they need some sunlight, ample water. They grow really well up in Canada, so humidity. Of course, we're fairly humid in Orange County. But yeah, soil is the big issue on them too. We get rhubarb from other growers. They're not in good soil.
So acid mix or top pot doesn't really matter.
Either one.
Okay. The next question is, do you have advice on how to best swap out growers' compost soil with top pots, specifically for an avocado tree?
Good luck. So avocados are like gardenia. There's a lot of plants we haven't successfully swapped out the dirt on. Avocados, our success rate was probably less than 40% of the, we'd swap the dirt out, the trees would die back. We'd set them there, see if they grow again. Some would grow a little bit, some, it's leaf size makes a big difference. So avocado leaves tend to be about this big. If the leaves stay small and are small, it means the roots aren't reviving. Mm-hmm. But it's really hard to repair avocados. I mean, you can certainly try it. The most gentle way to take soil off of roots is with a shower of water. Although that may not be water efficient, so a lot of times I'll put my finger at the end of the hose and squirt it good with a strong stream, but not much volume. or put a little valve on the end. You can turn it almost to the off and just use it that way. But all the books show that if you want to take soil off the roots, the gentlest way, you get a shower head on your end of your hose and just shower all that soil off most gentle way. But still, you know, our success rate on a lot of, you know, gardenias, avocados, trying to think of another one we don't do well with. Most plants we get 100% success, but avocados hasn't been very good.
You don't use Kevin's method of just like throwing it on the ground.
Yeah, like with citrus, they can take a beating and their roots just don't break. But a lot of plants, I've cleaned a few blueberries off without any problems, so blueberries aren't that sensitive.
Okay. The next question is, I had 2 identical pink lemonade blueberry bushes. They were planted in 5-gallon pots and they were right next to each other. Despite receiving the exact same care, one is healthy and one died within a week. What could have caused this? I suppose there's a lot of variables there, then.
Yeah, it could be the soil from the grower. So the problem with growers, a lot of the growers, the soil mix they use is not uniform. Like I've taken a lot of plants out of pots and taken the soil off. And sometimes in a container, it's pure compost on one side and pure dirt on the other. It's like they're not mixing it with machinery. They're using, or with the blending machine, they're using tractors to mix up this stuff. So some pots may be stuck with really bad combination of ingredients. You know, if all the growers just use straight sand, we wouldn't have any problems at all. But because sand is heavy, no one uses much sand anymore. But that would be the most uniform soil that we can use. But whenever you're talking with organics, like this plant I had, one side looked like a lump of clay and the other side looked like solid compost. The roots were all over in the clay side because that was better for them than the compost side, which was just blew me away. I was thinking, okay, you know, they like this real nasty clay better than compost. But
I know that they did add ratios. They said the soil was 70% sand, 20% peat moss, and 10% charcoal.
that's not bad. That'll work for soil, but the plants that they got may not have been very good.
Yeah.
So.
Next question is, do you have any tips for growing, oh my God, how do I pronounce this? Jaboticaba trees?
We've grown them. They need good soil too. So we've grown them up to fruiting size. A beautiful plant. I mean, Jaboticaba. It's a real common tree in Brazil. They don't think the fruit is all that great there. So it's kind of like a fruit that the kids will eat. But it's got this, it takes about 8 or 10 years for these trees to get to size, kind of a irregular head. And then they start flowering right on the trunk and they make this grape-like fruit with seeds in it right on the trunk. It tastes kind of like grape, somewhere grape, lychee flavor. Thick, tough skin, can't eat it easily. And then they have the seeds. So it's okay. It's a beautiful plant. I mean, one of the prettiest plants that you can ever grow. But fruit quality, I grew one to fruiting size. I don't think I'll do it again. But it is a pretty plant. If you just want in the landscape, something you can just go out there and pick.
What are your thoughts on the state's current pest control alerts, and what kind of training or public education do we need to protect our local trees? It's kind of a big one.
Well, that's kind of an individual thing. I mean, you can give training to a pest controller, but it's like a nurse. When the nurse is qualified to do work, she doesn't know a whole lot. She knows how to keep someone from dying, but she may not know everything. Pest controller, same thing. You have to have experience on the field. I mean, I'm a trained pest controller, but that didn't teach me a whole lot. Taught me how to read a label.
Yeah.
You just have to have experience in the field. Same with any field. You got to have experience. I've been spraying plants for 50 years. So I learned a lot during that time. I mean, after 10 years, you think you know a lot. You don't know anything after 10 years. It takes 20, 30 years to know stuff.
Someone who works in their field, I don't feel like my degree really prepared me for all the jobs I've had. Mostly it's just, learn as you go.
Yeah.
The next question is, my lawn has been taken over with a fast spreading plant. I think it is milkweed. I have 3 moringa trees and a red push pistache tree. They might have meant pistachio, but I don't know.
No, that's red push pistache.
Pistache, okay. And they have those trees in the lawn, and they also have dogs. Is there a treatment method I could use instead of hand pulling? I imagine they mentioned the dogs because they need things to be dog safe.
Hand pulling, about the only thing I can think of. I mean, there are contact poisons that you can, this is probably relatively safe where you just snip the plant and paint the end of the stub that's still sitting there with a really bad weed killer. I mean, Roundup doesn't do anything. It would have to be like, I have a product on the shelf called BK32. I don't know, it's not that safe, but if you just paint the tip of that cut, because it's supposed to kill trees by painting the stump. And it's supposed to kill vines by just painting the stump. So it's pretty strong. I don't know if it's super safe, but that's a tiny amount of poison to put in your yard rather than spraying stuff.
One of my friends recently it's specifically a flamethrower angled to burn weeds. That might be a faster solution for this person. I don't know.
We tried that.
Oh, it did not work.
Well, a propane one probably won't. So they all recommend they all have these propane tanks. So I sat there trying to kill a grass plant. After 2 minutes, it starts to sizzle. I'm going, my God, this is taking a long time to get. And I was told by a guy that does welding, propane is not hot enough. You need welding gases, and it just take a few seconds.
That's very dangerous.
But with the grass plant, this grass plant was only about that big. It took minutes for it to look like it was burning. So there's a lot of new technology out there. So on farms right now, they're using laser guns.
Oh, yeah.
So they have tractor mounted lasers with cameras that you see them using on the farm. It's this little puff of smoke. So we might have stuff like that in the future, because that's pretty dangerous for a normal person to hold on to. A laser gun.
Oh my God.
But they do have them on these huge tractor mounted units. One laser has a unit this big for powering it and cooling the laser. And so they have about 8 attached to the back of a tractor. And so the guy operating is, the things can do on their own with GPS, but there's cameras on each laser that knows where the plant's supposed to be versus the weeds. So when it comes across the plant in the wrong place, it just zaps it with the laser. So that's one of the newest technologies out there. So we may have laser guns for weeds pretty soon. I don't know how safe they'll be. They'll have to figure out a way to make it safer.
I don't know. People have CRISPR in their garages now. It's the Wild West. Someone asked, what is the best soil ratio mix for dragon fruit? And is using 1 part cactus mix, 1 part potting soil, and 1 part perlite viable?
Well, the best potting soil that we've ever come across in all our work of doing this, if it's for pots, if it's in the ground, you don't need anything. But for a pot, pure sand, like an all-purpose sand or a masonry sand, is hard to beat. When we did our container testing 35 years ago, sand beat everything. It's just the weight, but if the weight's not a problem, it'll certainly hold the dragon fruit straighter than most soils are so soft that the dragon fruit just wobbles in the pot along with the stakes and everything. Most potting soils are of negative value. They're all made out of ground up wood or bark. Most cactus mixes are ground up wood or bark with a little pumice and sand added just so it's not as bad. But certainly not of positive value. I'd still say most cactus mixes and potting soils are of negative value around plant roots. Some are just not as bad as others. But sand or top pot, yeah, sand is hard to beat.
Do you have to worry about salt in the sand?
Well, you can't get sand off the beach. That's salty. So we're not allowed to get sand off the beaches, and the sand you get from building supply yards or from a big box store, they're out of riverbeds. Those sands are pulled from riverbeds, so there's no real salt in them. So.
Is there a difference between compost and within compost, is there differences between certain kinds? Or, well, like for example, if you don't use wood chips and wood products in making your own compost, it's not the same as the stuff you buy at Home Depot, right?
Well, yeah, certainly the proper compost is made out of leaves and branches, not wood and bark.
Food scraps.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the compost that they sell us made out of wood and bark, that's not natural in nature. Trees don't grind themselves up into compost. Compost should be leaves. Leaves, branches, flowers, manure, stuff like that. Not bark and wood. That's, I mean, in some forests there's a lot of bark on the ground, but it's, compost, it shouldn't be bark and wood. And still, but that's what they make out of because that's what's available most consistently is from a sawmill, you get bark and wood, but it should be leaves.
Yeah.
With the jumping worm, it's hard to find even leaves down.
Oh, no, they're everywhere.
Oh my god. The next question is, my papaya seeds just germinated. I live in Murrieta, California. Is it too late to put them in the ground? Should I put them in pots?
Well, because, it's nice to get them in the ground as soon as you can, but you got to get them used to the heat because they'll bleach, the leaves will bleach and burn if you put them straight from, if you start them outside in the sun, they're fine. So, yeah, it's nice to get them in the ground as soon as you can. Although in Murrieta, I don't know if it gets too cold in the winter for them there.
Okay. What is your take on using humic acid to boost nutrient uptake? And what do you like to pair with it for the best results?
So humic acids, I don't know if that's, because they claim that there's humic acids out of, one of the byproducts of compost is humic acids. Which is, I guess, lignin, which is the glue that holds plants together, is one of the humic acids. But usually, when we have a box full of humic acids, it's not that, it's leonardite. So I'm not sure if lignin will qualify as same as leonardite, but leonardite is a charcoal deposit from Texas. So it's essentially charcoal. And charcoal is in nature is what minerals is attracted to charcoal. So charcoal holds minerals in place, so fertilizers work better when there's some form of charcoal nearby because they won't leach out, they'll just stay right in the area. And also a lot of the organisms in soil, the amoebas, protozoas, like to live on pieces of charcoal. So leonardite and humic acids, that term's sometimes used together, but I think humic acids actually refers to lignin, but I'm not positive. But of course, lignin may be very similar to charcoal. It's an organic molecule made from sugar that doesn't decompose. So things can't eat it. So it may act the same as the leonardite, and these two may be used interchange. I don't know. I don't know the details on that, but
Gary, I have a 3-year-old Charlotte avocado tree, and I have some leaves that are like 12 inches long. So they getting too much light.
no, it just means it's really healthy. I mean, we want bigger leaves, Bigger leaves usually means healthier roots.
You know, I haven't had any fruits for the last 2 seasons. You know, the fruit will come out and drop off.
Well, bees make the big difference on that.
I've been hand pollinating the thing, you know, with doing the cross pollination thing to try and make it stronger, but it's still dropping.
Yeah. You do the honey trick?
No, it's a Charlotte.
Yeah, use the honey trick. Get the bees to your tree. Just spray honey, 3/4 water, 1/4 honey, and spritz the flower areas when they're blooming. Get the bees on them. Because I think bees are more efficient than people as far as pollinating goes. But
I have this one in the greenhouse, and so I've been hand pollinating.
Oh, that greenhouse you built, yeah, remember that?
Never thought about that. If you have a greenhouse, pollinators can't get in
Yeah.
unless you like.
Oh, yeah, open up all the doors and put honey in there, and then they'll come in.
I had that problem in my greenhouse, and I tried to grow Japanese cucumbers inside, but they're minuscule, you know, they have to have pollinators. So I found out that Persian cucumbers are enotrophic,
Mhm.
and they don't need pollinators. They don't care if it's pollinator or not.
Right.
And they're all blooming now. They put little blooms on the bottom.
Okay, any other questions?
A few more from the chat. Do you have any experience growing Passiflora ligularis?
I do not.
All right, cool. Next. What are your thoughts on shade cloth?
Well, I try not to use it unless it depends what plant you're growing. I mean, shade cloth, in our nursery, we use shade cloth for our shade plants, and it's about 2/3 shade and 1/3 sunlight. It's what we usually use here. But a lot of orchards use shade cloth too for certain, like out in Menifee, they use shade cloth, I think 30% for their dragon fruit, which still lets a lot of light in. But I haven't used shade cloth that many times on plants. I don't know.
Okay. If you were to multigraph mango, which 3 varieties would you choose here in SoCal, specifically Westminster?
I don't know all the new varieties. I mean, there's a lot of new mangoes out there. When I grew mangoes 30 years ago, the top ones were things like Kit, Kent, Edward, Carey. Carey's still top rated. The best performer in my yard was Valencia Pride. Didn't care for Manila. Didn't care for Hayden. It was okay though. Just lots of fiber for a number of years. We know Tommy Atkins is not one to do. Now the newer ones that are top rated, Coconut Cream, Orange Sherbet, but I haven't eaten them yet, so I couldn't tell you how much better they are than the ones that we grew 40 years ago or 30 years ago.
Okay.
Again, one of the problems we have is as the plants are being developed, they just get sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. It's like, again, how much sugar do you need in your body?
It's because the American palate is now used to just a ton of refined carbohydrates and everything you need.
Yeah.
They added sugar. They're adding sugar to like marinara sauce, so I have to look at the ingredients label before I buy it.
Yeah.
Tomatoes already naturally have a lot of sugar in them. Okay, the next question is, I planted an Evans cherry tree in spring. Oh, sorry, let me leave. I live in Minnesota. I planted an Evans cherry tree in the spring. It has tiny leaves, is bleeding near the trunk, and is barely growing. What could be wrong with it?
Well, tiny leaves means a root problem. Bleeding near the trunk may be a canker disease on the trunk. If that area on the trunk looks like it's increasing in size, yeah, it may be an infection that you can't do anything about on a young tree. Cherry trees are real subject to a fungus that enters through a wound when it's raining. especially if dirt splashes onto the wounded area when it's raining, then they get an infection and it can wipe out the entire tree. We saw that 3 or 4 years ago when we had a lot of rain. We lost a lot of cherry trees that year from just the damage that occurred when they were being shipped bare root. And it was raining on us. We lost a lot of cherry trees. And small leaves usually means you're not getting stuff from the roots to the top. So it could also mean root rot.
Yeah, I feel like most of the time it's just root rot. I have a couple of potted in acid mix, specifically coffee arabica plants. They flowered and are currently fruiting, but the leaves are 80% yellow on both plants. I fertilized in spring. What could be causing this?
That I don't know. I'd have to see the top of yellowing it is to tell you what's missing. Even then, it's not easy. I mean, there's 13 minerals, so it's one of them. Send us photos of the leaves, and we might be able to figure it out.
I
Or-
put the email in the chat so people can.
Yeah, just for the time being, give them a good organic fertilizer, organic source fertilizer, because organic fertilizers should have all the minerals, unless they're just one. Well, especially if it's a seed meal. If you give them neem seed meal or cottonseed meal, most seed meals have all the minerals. Soybean meal, there's a lot of seed meals.
The next question is, do you have any suggestions on pruning white sapote trees? I want it to grow tall. Is it safe to prune it to 4 feet without killing it? I also advise them that your next class next week is on pruning.
Haven't seen enough literature on white sapote trees to tell you how sturdy they are, if they can handle heavy pruning or not. Generally, they all get big. There's a few dwarfs on the market, but most white sapotes get huge. And you don't really have to do much you just have to let them grow for a while. And they're like 30, 40 foot tall. So if it's a healthy tree, you don't have to do anything.
Okay. We got 2 more. When increasing the pot size of a plant in sand, how do you make sure the root ball doesn't fall apart?
Wait till the roots hold it together better. That's the one problem with sand, is that you have to have a really solid root ball before you can move it. Because sand is so heavy that if you try to pull it out of there before the roots knit the sand, it just falls apart. I know that's a hard one to judge.
Yeah.
Like in most pots, if I go from a 1 gallon to a 5 gallon, I give them at least 3 months. I write the date on the pot before I attempt to pull the plant out of there by its trunk. And if it's sand, I'd probably go 4 months. And some plants are faster. Things that grow fast, like mulberries or tomato plants, would be a lot quicker than that.
There's a few more in the chat as well. What to do when a fig tree has ample foliage but does not fruit? I imagine stop fertilizing it.
Okay, did they say the source of the fig tree?
No.
So figs can be grown from seed. A lot of volunteer figs won't fruit for 5 or 6 years because they're babies. And half of those don't even make edible fruit because they got the male parts in the fruit. And a lot of the other ones won't be very good. Now they can also be sick because the roots are infected by root knot nematodes. We've seen that on figs where they don't grow very well. No fruit forming because the trees are real sick. The roots have root knot nematodes, which make the roots look all bumpy and lumpy. You can cure that by planting ryegrass over the root zone for about 3 months. Otherwise, I don't know if most figs. Okay, well, one other thing would be if you cut it down too much in the wintertime, figs produce fruit best off of 1-year-old growth. So if you have a branch last year that grew 5 feet, you've got to leave a few inches that branch, and whatever goes off of that branch will have fruit this year. If you cut it too low into like 2 or 3-year-old wood, it'll grow a branch with no fruit on it for that entire year. So that's one thing. If you're pruned too hard in the winter, then you don't have any fruiting wood for that year. And then the next year, whatever grows off of that branch that grew this year will have fruit on it. Sometimes you can cheat halfway through the year and cut that branch back a bit, and what grows off of that branch will have fruit on it.
The next question is, can you use lump mesquite charcoal, or does it have to be horticultural charcoal?
Well, any charcoal that's not treated with things that make it ignite easier should be fine. Charcoal's charcoal.
Okay. The next question is, what is your opinion on using beneficial nematodes for thrips when other pest control measures like spinosad aren't 100% effective?
No, beneficial nematodes, boy, how would that work? So beneficial nematodes spend part of their life cycle in the ground, so that's probably where it's going to kill them, is when they're pupate, they go into the dirt. So if you have the beneficial nematodes in the ground, it probably stops them right there. Of course, if your neighbors aren't controlling thrips in their yard, or if the surrounding neighborhood has a lot of thrips, you still get plenty of damage on your plants. So it's not going to help much.
There are there's pesticide management they use in grape growing. I don't know how applicable this is to other plants, but it's the biotic pest control, where you put certain bacteria in the soil, and the plant will uptake the bacterial excretions, and then insects who feed on your plant they die through various methods. I think there's a few, but I don't know if they're available for public use or.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't sell anything like that. So the beneficial nematodes probably keep the thrips from multiplying in your yard, but they wouldn't keep them away from your yard.
What is the best way to combat squash bugs passively? Neem oil? ?
Squash bugs. I think you're talking about the sucking bugs. I don't know. I haven't dealt with those, so I don't know the answer to that one. If that's a squash bug would imply it's sucking insect. I'd probably try the Earth's Ally on it and see if that works.
Which Osmocote should I get for general fruit tree applications, if there is one?
Well, at the store, we use Osmocote 15912, which is their outdoor and indoor Osmocote. The last 5 to 6 months, they have a whole slew of different Osmocotes out there, but that's the one we've been using. Of course, is that a question for plants in the ground or in pots?
They didn't specify.
Okay, because Osmocote is definitely good for containers, since it's got a time release. In the ground, we would just go organic. It's just better in the long run.
Okay. What are your thoughts on moon nurseries? I used to visit a lot of nurseries from Escondido up to Irvine. Each had their own specialties and rarities. Now Moon owns them all.
Yeah, well, Moon, the owner is an oil guy from Persia.
Oh my God.
He back in around 2008, when we had the last economic downturn, the nurseries just were going out of business. He just bought up a whole bunch of them. Mm-hmm. and bought up a whole bunch of trees and promotes them and is trying to make money off this. He's not a nurseryman, so they use selling techniques that are not common in our industry to sell plants to you, because they're not really, the owner really isn't a nursery person. So can't say they're doing it wrong. They just do it really differently.
Do it the way you should do it if you want to make money, I guess.
True. They're trying to make money from their huge investments that they made on nurseries that were failing. So,
Gary, I bought a pineapple plant from you about 2 years ago. It's the white jade, I think it was.
mhm.
And it's got about half a dozen suckers on it. Can I just break the suckers off and transplant it?
Yep. Certainly can.
It won't damage the roots when I do that.
Not supposed to. I mean, bromeliad plants don't need much root system, so you're not going to really do much damage.
And then what should I put into the new soil that I have?
Well, they like very well aerated soil. So if it's in a pot or in the ground,
In a pot.
well, use our top pot or, well, they don't need much water retention. So you can take our acid mix and add more perlite. I don't know when we get pumice back, because when I was growing gorgeous pineapples that were bigger than the ones at the supermarket, we have them in mostly pumice.
Mostly pumice.
Yeah. And they were just absolutely gorgeous and mostly pumice rock.
What kind of fertilizer should I use for that?
Well, when we're doing that work, we use the grow more bromeliad food every week on them. It's a water soluble fertilizer. So the bromeliad fertilizers seem to work really well.
One last question. Is it possible to try and propagate green hop seed cuttings or Tacoma stands? And what is the best approach?
Well, we used to grow hops, the Dodonia viscosa purpurea, or just Dodonia viscosa from seeds, and about a third of them came up green and 2/3 came up purple. And they're easy to grow. They're very fast. In 2 years, they're 6 foot tall from the seed, so they're real fast. So you don't know what you're going to get from seed. They'll come out different colors. But we were getting about a third green and 2/3 purple just from seeds we would collect in the neighborhoods. So
Far, that's it for the chat questions. I had one last question. I planted some root beer hyssopes. I don't really plant flowers that much. This is my first go. My first one is like this big. It's like 3 to 4 feet tall. Is that normal?
don't know. I haven't grown that.
Oh my god, it's like a sentient being now. I'm
Mhm.
scared of it. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks.